Welcome back to 420 Chief. Today I'm in the studio and virtually got We the Wolfpack, Jonathan, uh, on with us today. And Jonathan's somebody that I had heard about on TikTok and started coming into his lives and realized he's got an amazing thing going on. He plays some music therapy, much like myself. He is a place where people can openly come and just be themselves, and it's a wealth of support. If there's trolls in there, they don't typically last long, but I don't ever see any disrespect in there. I do see a ton of support. It's a great place to get follows. And to be honest, I've actually learned more about TikTok joining his lives than I have any of the TikTok tutorials, like just the little tips, tricks, hacks, if you will, even just to share stuff out. He knows quick and easy ways to do that. So with that ado, I wanted to, and also a Navy veteran, 4-year Navy veteran. I wanted to introduce Jonathan. Welcome to the podcast. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you for welcoming in me into your podcast. Definitely, thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. I was going to say, let's just hit the ground running today. Let's talk about your transition from military to civilian life, because this is something that I ask most all of my guests on the show, because there's so many questions about that for to help our civilian brothers and sisters understand, what we went from, even just the workforce, the hours, the sleep, to that civilian life. It plays a role on us. And I know yourself, actually, if you just want to give us a little brief background of your history up to your transition, I'll just let you take off with it.
Okay. Well, I decided that I wanted to join the military when I was in high school. My brother he joined. He was 18 months older than me, so when he joined, he became a Marine. And I originally wanted to be like an Army sniper, work with the airborne or something like that. However, the guy that I was talking to, the recruiter, he didn't get back to me in a very quick manner. Instead, another recruiter had reached out to me from the Navy, and he just happened to be a SEAL, so that
Okay.
kind of took precedence over it. And um, so, like, I guess as soon as I graduated, I was in a before I graduated, I was in what they call a delayed entry program,
Yeah.
and we worked with the recruiting office and the recruiter. And as soon as I graduated, they shipped me off to boot camp. Maybe a couple weeks after that, uh, went through boot, graduated. Actually, I graduated the day before September 11th, 2001. So the day they handed me my orders is the day the Twin Towers got hit. So
Wow.
that's kind of when things kind of changed a little bit for me, because when I originally joined, it was, I wanted to do it for like the perks. They pay for schooling, and there's just a lot of like things that they do for you. So I didn't when I joined up, I wasn't in a frame of mind of thinking that I was going to uh, be overseas in the midst of it all. But at that moment when that had happened, I knew that, especially with my A school training and C school training, I knew that I was going to end up going over there.
Yeah.
So
What a complete change of mindset, to think about it, because it was a quiet time when you joined, and then that happens. There's so much
mhm.
uncertainty and actually quite a bit of panic, especially being so young oh, damn, into the military. And it's like, what's going on? Nobody really knows. But one thing's for sure, that it's changing. So that's scary, man. I feel you there.
Like when all that went down and they locked the bases all down, and I was in that frame of mind knowing that at some point they were going to ship me over there. I wasn't scared. I was kind of angry, and I was ready, and I was like, send me over there. I'm ready to go. Even though when I joined, I didn't have that idea that I would ever be doing anything like that. I knew that there was always a possibility, a chance of being involved in operation. But at that moment in my mind, I was ready to go. Now, what happened over there, I thought I was prepared for. I was definitely not prepared for it. But yeah, I was angry and ready to go. I was like, ship me over there. I'm ready.
Yeah. I actually remember you were telling a story in your live last night about grenade training,
Mm.
and it gave me a flashback, man. Because you want to tell a brief overview of what happened on yours during the
Uh,
grenade qualifications on the ship?
of the concussion grenade training.
Yeah, because I
Yeah.
have it's eerie. I have a very similar story.
Well, being my job description, other branches call it MOS, but we call it A school. I was a gunner's mate. I went to gun school. I finished second in my class, and top three always went to a secondary school, a C school, which was VLS training, vertical launching systems training. But along with the being a gunner's mate, a lot of things that we did on board was do weapons quals, weapons training, explosives training, all that kind of stuff. So anybody that was on our ships, we were the ones to train and hold qualifications, because you had to have a yearly qualification in order to handle any kind of sidearms or whatever, what have you, we had on the ship. Um, During that moment in time, we were going through what we concussion grenade training, because that's what we had on board, not fragment, but concussion grenades. And basically, the difference between a concussion grenade and a fragment grenade is it a fragment grenade, when it goes off, it sends shrapnel into the air. A concussion grenade more or less causes an implosion underneath the water. They're designed for underwater divers and anything going on underneath the ship in the water. It's a deterrent for that. But that day we were holding qualifications for the concussion grenades, and of course, first in line was our new weapons officer, who was a lieutenant. And to be quite frank with you, like I was saying last night in the live, she is definitely somebody that should not have been in the position that she was in. However, she was, and that's who we had, and she was in line, and I had her in my line. So we were going through the steps of what to do with the concussion grenade, and we were doing it off the aft end of the ship, because when we were out to sea, we did a lot of our training on the aft end of the ship. If we were in port, we did our training on the ground, usually in like a semi truck trailer that had been converted into a range. But of course, concussion grenades, you can't do that inside those. But weapons officer came in, and we went through the process of how to handle the grenade, what to do, how to throw it. And the moment that it was her turn to actually follow through with it, she pulled the pin. She went to throw it, and she was a very bad thrower, I guess. So when she
Oops.
went and lobbed it, it literally, she threw it maybe 10 feet, and it hit the back railing of the aft of the ship, or on the aft end of the ship, and it dropped in the water and went right down behind the ship. And when it exploded, it put a hole in the shaft of, the propeller and all that. It put a hole in the shaft end of the ship. So then we had a big oil spill, and it was a big deal, like huge deal. We ended up in dry dock for 3 months so they could pull the ship out of the water and fix the hole. But it was all because of that weapons officer, that we were actually late in heading over to the Middle East because of that. But it
Dang,
was
training
quite the
mistake,
experience.
man. And
Yeah.
those are a big deal. I remember when I was on the USS Detroit out of New Jersey. We were a fueler ship. We just unrepped, underway replenished
Hmm.
weapons, ammo, food, and fuel. That's all we did, 24/7. And I remember one day we were out, and like you had mentioned, the gunners mates were doing a weapons qual, and they were qualifying on the concussion grenades. And I
Hmm.
remember I went, did it, threw it, and we're all macho. We're all like trying to see him get the best hang time to see who can
Hmm.
keep it from exploding before it hits water. I mean, I got a cannon, but not even close. It was still probably 2, 3 seconds later.
Hmm.
Anyways, so I did my qual and I went down below. So we were throwing off of the flight deck. So I went down below on the smoke deck, and where they didn't have it secured, we were out there, we're all smoking and you could hear it like boom. Well, it was like a few minutes later, I was getting ready to go in to go to chow, and there was this explosion. I remember like a quick light, and then my teeth started to hurt, and my ears haven't stopped ringing since. Come to find out, the gunner's mates had put one of the grenades in the box and thrown it
Ooh.
over the side, and so it didn't sink. It floated,
Oh.
and went off. And there were several of us on the smoke pit on the aft end of the ship that were like just out from it. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I can still feel that to this day in my bones. Like, oh my gosh, those things
I,
explode
I
so hard.
I can imagine it, and they do, and to give people an idea of what they actually do. If you're in the water and you have one go off anywhere near you, it'll turn you inside out. It'll turn your whole body inside out. Like about the most disgusting thing that you could ever imagine happening to a human body. That's exactly what would happen.
And there's a
Going off.
humongous, yeah, there's a humongous range off of that where it'll just knock you unconscious and you'll float up.
Mhm,
It's those things are disgusting.
mhm. They are definitely effective. That's for
But
sure.
any, I got us off topic there, but you were talking about your time in service.
Yeah. So I went through gunner's mate training. Went through vertical launching systems training. When I first got to my duty station, I worked with the VLS techs, and I think I was with the VLS techs for maybe my first year and a half or so, and I transitioned over into the weapons division. So at that point, that's when we became the armors. We were part of the SCAT teams, which is just onboard protection if we're ever boarded or anything like that. Did what they call VBSS training,
Ooh,
which
little vessel board
is,
search and seizure.
yep.
Yeah,
So we were on the boarding teams, and so it was quite the experience. I went through SRT training over at Little Creek. Got to work with the SEALs. Got to work with SWIC. Um, so it was definitely the experience. See, when I first joined up, instead of getting like a sign on bonus like most people did, I was actually guaranteed a spot in Bud School, which is basic underwater demolition SEAL training. However, I didn't make it past my screening test because I didn't know how to side stroke. I couldn't swim. I could run, I could do everything else, but the swimming got me. So I ended up not being able to qualify to go over to Bud School. But I definitely wanted to get into something that was more hands-on, I guess, for lack of better terms. But so yeah, but before we made it over to the Middle East, I had already transitioned over. No, actually, it was after we made it to the Middle East. Then I transitioned over to the weapons division. But when we first got there, I was part of the VLS tech division, so I was up in the forward launcher of the ship. And when we first got up there, it was at the very beginning of 2003, and that we were part of the first operation by sea uh, uh, targeting Baghdad. So it was quite the experience.
I can imagine. And how old were
Mhm.
you at that time?
Uh, 18,
Wow, just old enough.
18. Yep. I hadn't even turned 19 yet, but yep.
Okay. So after that, what would you like to discuss from your time in service?
Oh, I mean, ask me some questions, I guess. I don't know. There, we spent a whole lot longer than we were supposed to spend. We were only supposed to do a 6 month turnaround, and we ended up being up there almost 18 months because we ended up taking over for a minesweeper that broke down up in the northern Gulf. We weren't even supposed to go that far up into the Gulf, our ship. But since we ended up a minesweeper broke down, we ended up taking their place, and their, with what we had on board had a lot to do with why we did that, because we were I was on a guided missile destroyer, but it was an Arleigh Burke class, but it was the first of its Flight 2 Alpha ships, which means we had two helos on board. So that gave us an edge of other destroyers and cruisers out there. So that's why we ended up going as far north as we went. Um, we a lot of we took a lot of heat while we were up there between searching for mines in the water, which was crazy because we had what they call the Kingfisher on board. However, another position that they put us in was up at the very front of the ship to literally look off the front end of the ship for any kind of mines floating in the water. And you always wondered why they would put you up there, because I don't know what the limitations of the Kingfisher was and why they really needed this up there at the front. Maybe it's just whatever the Kingfisher uh, missed, but it was kind of unnerving to be at the front of the ship watching for mines in the water, because by the time you see one, and as fast as we're moving, it's like the chances of you like getting around it are slim to none, and you're right there in the direct line of it. So that was kind of an unnerving thing.
Certainly.
uh the VBSS, like that was one of our main things. We did search and seizures, and everything from small dhows to big cargo container ships that were in the Gulf. We'd either fast rope out of the helos that we had on board, or we'd board using our rib boats. And then, of course, some of these containers on the container ships are stacked 13 high. So we'd have to rappel down from each container. And some of these ships have hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of containers. So it'd take a long time to go through each one of those containers. Sometimes we'd meet resistance. Sometimes it was an easy go. They didn't want no troubles. But like there was times where we got into some serious gunfights because of it. They didn't want boarded, whether they were part of the regime there or not. They didn't like the fact that the Americans were there. And mind you, being up in the northern Gulf, you're next to Saudi Arabia, which at the time we didn't. We had an all right relationship with Saudi Arabia, but we're also right there next to Iran as well. So you always had the Iranians watching us, and you always had the concern whether they were going to take advantage of certain situations or not. So there's quite a lot that I did while I was up there, and a lot of different operations we were part of. And like I said, it had to do a lot with what type of ship we were having two helos on board. Um,
And I
the
wanted
the
to touch base on something that you talked about was that VBSS. I did work with those guys, and I also worked with the dog teams from the Coast Guard. Very similar missions, but when a VBSS team gets on board of a ship that they're searching, they actually take command of that ship. So they have
Yep.
somebody that, like, this is a legitimate thing. Like if he's talking about these cargo ships that just bring in just looks like trains worth of stuff, and one of the guys from their team says, "This is my boat now," and they send their team out, and they have access to whatever spaces. So the training for that is really intense as well.
Mm,
I remember performing several exercises, and they do definitely train like they fight there. That's hardcore stuff. That's pretty awesome. It's good training.
yep. It definitely is. I think they could have trained us better, but I mean, how do you can't really. It's really hard to train for situations, that bad situations. You know what I mean? You just got to be kind of prepared for it, and a lot of it you revert to your training that you go through, and a lot of it you're winging it because of the unknowns, or a lot of unknowns. It's different when you're boots on the ground in the sandbox, and you're fighting, from cover to cover from each position. But it's another thing when you're stuck in a small steel ship, or even a big steel ship in small steel rooms, and you're in a firefight. It's a whole different beast, and it's extremely loud. It's very
Yes,
loud.
and
I
it's
ended up.
extremely difficult even when you're not familiar with it.
Mm,
The layout.
yep, absolutely. And some of them ships, especially those container ships, man, they're massive. They're like floating cities, and there's so many different rooms inside of it. So just after you've been on one or two, you kind of get a generalized layout of what it's like. So, I guess the first couple container ships that we did was kind of scary, but after that, we kind of got the generalized layout of what they're like, and we didn't have big teams. You're talking a team of between 8 and 12 men covering a massive ship like that. And so, yeah, it can be definitely unnerving and intimidating.
For sure. So after your mobilization, what'd you do? Or your deployment, I mean, rather.
Well, when I got back, when we finally got back, I was pretty messed up. Uh, we had been part of a lot and seen a lot that we were doing over there. There was a lot of political agendas that was involved in some of the exercises that we did and some of the operations that we did. So there's a lot that I didn't agree with, that we were a part of, but I had to be a part of it no matter what. We got to follow those orders. But coming back is like the decompression of it was really difficult for me. um the unit that I was in was pretty hush hush on having like if you had some like mental things going on, you're struggling. They tried to deal with it within your divisions. They didn't really want it on the getting out what we were doing over there or what we were part of, even though we had doctors on base and all that. Like being able to go see a doctor wasn't as easy as people would think it would be, as easy as it should have been. But it was a struggle for me. And when I got out, it was an even bigger struggle because we talk a lot about the camaraderie that we had while we're in there. Well, I felt like after I got out, I lost that. And if it was one thing that kind of kept me sane, was the fact that my brothers and my sisters that I served with were next to me at any given time. If I needed to go talk to them, I could talk to them, and most of them had done the same or was part of the same operations that I was. So like it's hard to talk to somebody that doesn't understand what you've been through because they weren't in your shoes versus somebody that was in your shoes. You're more willing to open up about your problems. But like after I got out, man, I completely shut down. Um, the doctors that I did talk to, they were all, I felt like they were all just reading out of a damn book, and they were just kind of dehumanized, desensitized, and it made me angry. And it was a really really hard struggle. You know, like man, like I wish I could go back and fix all that. I never will be able to go back and fix all that. But it's just when they wanted to send me to go talk to the doctors and the therapists, they wanted to put me in a group of guys that talked about the problems that they face, and I just didn't feel like I ever like connected with those people because they weren't there. They didn't see what I seen. They may have in their own ways, but there's just the camaraderie, the comfort of knowing my brothers and sisters that I served with side by side. It wasn't there anymore. So I I I've just I was completely disconnected. So
What were you
it,
doing at the time to kind of cope with that? You said you would talk to doctors. Did they prescribe you anything, or you
They
know?
did. They prescribed me 100 different kinds of medications, and then I'd have side effects to those medications, and then they'd give me more medications for the side effects of that shit. And I've never been a person to take medications. I don't like the idea of man-made chemicals in the labs, and no telling what you're taking, and it tears your body up. It causes, if you have any kind of imbalance in your head, they give you a pill saying this is going to balance that out, but in all actuality, it just throws you off balance even more. So like when I got home, I moved in with a few of my high school friends that I went to school with, and of course my brother. And my brother, he was, like I said, he was a Marine. Uh, he never seen any combat though, so he didn't exactly understand what I was dealing with because he spent most of his time either in Okinawa standing gate duty, or he got stationed down in Hawaii. So he just didn't understand it. But he was the one that handed me, like, I was dealing with some serious like anxiety one day, and my anxiety would always trigger my PTSD, and I'd have flashbacks. And one day he handed me a joint and was like, "Here, this is what you need right here." And growing up, I was always with the dad that I had a stepdad, and he adopted me when I was 4. But he was a prior airborne ranger, two tours in Vietnam. After he got out of the army, he worked for the U.S. government for 23 years, and then after that, he became a police officer for 8.5 years. So he was a
Wow,
pretty
life of
strict.
service.
Yeah, but with that said, he was like one of those ones that was just like a total prude, like he never smiled, always angry. Well, in I guess at that time I didn't really understand why he was so angry, uh, or as angry as he was, until I actually went and served myself and seen some of the stuff and was part of some of the stuff that I was. I didn't understand why he was that way. But then after that, I understood. But with that said, I grew up understanding that cannabis was a drug. It was bad, and you got to stay away from it. And so when my brother handed it to me, I was kind of like, I don't know about this. He's like,
No,
just
I don't
trust
know,
me on
man.
this. Yep. Yep. And he handed it to me, and I smoked for the first time, and like it was an instant relief of the anxiety. I felt normal for once, and God knows how long. And the first time smoking, I got a little bit of the paranoia, you know. I got a little bit of the paranoia, but like what it just it would take me completely out of that mindset that I would always find myself in. And it was such an ugly place to be. The medication didn't even do that. All the different medicines that they would give me did not do anything to me like smoking would. So at that moment, I realized that my best bet is to continue to smoke before I ended up doing something that can't be undone. And I'll be honest with you, if it wasn't for cannabis, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't,
Wow.
and that's the honest truth.
I can relate a little bit of that with like the medications. And I remember when I was taking the pills that they'd given me, my coworkers noticed and they're like, "Hey, man, are you all right?" And this is my professional field. And I'm like, I'm a functioning alcoholic and all that. But they're like, if they didn't notice that as much, they knew. But what they noticed was like, I just was blah, man. And I was sitting there one night. I was like, I'm not even me. Like, I'm slow. Usually I'm quick witted. I'm funny. But now I'm just like, whatever. And it was just getting through. And I was completely not even me anymore. Like, I was like, I'm not even funny. This sucks. So I'm
Mhm,
glad I'm grateful for you telling us about that, and then especially how you were raised. It was definitely taboo in your house. Like your father,
mhm,
incredible career of service, but associated with each of those, he's got to be completely anti-drug. You've got to stay away. And in this
yep,
case, cannabis they consider a drug, so he wasn't even allowed to even think about trying that. And
right.
not to mention what he had been told that during his time frame, his life about it. So I but I'm glad that your brother was there, right? That's the most
Mhm,
important thing. I've heard this entire podcast. You've referred back to your brother, and that tells me a lot about that relationship that you have, and just that level of comfort that you had to have had right then. And you're like, you know what? I'm with my brother. I got to trust him. And then because you were in that safe place and he was there with you, you were able to have an experience. And you admitted it gave you some paranoia. You probably hit it too many times,
yeah,
but
yeah.
at the
There at
same
first,
at,
yeah.
at the same time, sometimes that's all we need to take that step back and just look at things a little bit differently, slow it down just a little bit. And
Mhm,
sometimes that's all we need to make a significant change. So I'm grateful for you
absolutely.
for just telling us that part. That was just your first time, you said, right? Your first time using?
Yes. Yep. And see, I got out at well, let's see, May, it'd been May of 2005 is when I got out. So, and today it's 2024. So it's been a long time since I've been out. Um, the transition, it's we're trained one way. They teach us to flip a switch, and when we get out, there's no smooth transition on flipping that switch back off and getting back into that civilian mindset. And so a lot of it is you on a personal level trying to navigate the ins and the outs of what you're dealing with, and not not really understanding it, and then there's a sense of anger towards it, and like, why can't I have a normal day? Why can't I just get out of this frame of thought? And it can be such an ugly struggle, and it can put us in situations that are really bad because we're not thinking right. Um, but up until this day, with the exception of the state that I'm in currently right now, because you do have to have a medical card here. The process of getting the medical card, and of course being snowed in where I'm snowed in at, it's hard to do anything or get anywhere right now. But I'll be back on the West Coast here come spring. Um, but there's so many instances, if I hadn't had it, like, it just would have been bad. It would have been bad. Like I said, I don't like to take the medications, and I'm unmedicated when it comes to that, because I don't like the way it makes me feel. I can't function with the medication that they give me. I don't want to sit here and drool all over myself and not be able to think straight and just feel like I'm in some sort of fog. With the cannabis, I can function. When I smoke, I'm able to think straight. I'm able to move around and do what I need through the day, and then it's been a lifesaver, man. It really has. And I know there's a lot of stigmas tied to it, and a lot of us grew up believing that it was just such a bad thing, but it's really not. It's an all natural thing from the ground. It's not made in some lab. Obviously, if you're not used to it, you don't smoke a whole lot of it. You got to take specific doses of it. But it's easier to do that these days because of like edibles, for example. You got what you call micro dosing that you can take, so you can
Yeah,
get a
and there's
generalized.
there's so many, dude. Like I've got different types of edibles from cookies to I've had wings. Now I've got mouth spray. I've got like pixie dust. There's everything now. There's literally everything.
You
And
know,
even um, for pain, like I know there's those that don't want to, feel like they've lost control because at first, when you start your cannabis journey, you can feel that paranoia. You feel like you're losing control. But if you don't want to feel high at all, they do have topicals and things like that that directly help with pain. But I wanted to ask you, um, what did you notice? Like, what healing properties did it help you with? It sounds like a lot of it was that mental focus and a little bit of clarity to kind of just focus thought and stop
mhm.
worrying about everything. But what other benefits did you find from consuming?
Well, the anxiety was my number one problem. Because if the anxiety got too bad, it would cause me to flip. It would totally cause me to flip, and possibly put me into a full blown panic attack or a flashback. Like, there was instances, and this was before I started smoking. There was instances where I literally thought that I was still in the combat zone, and I was fighting Al Qaeda or the Taliban, and it wasn't them. It was the police officers around me. But in that frame of mind, I didn't understand. Like, I was completely disconnected. So my main thing was to get the anxiety under control, because it was the anxiety that would flip me. And the just smoking cannabis, it would totally take that edge away of any moment that I would start feeling that anxiousness come up, or that anxiety start to hit me. All I would have to do was go take a couple hits, and then boom, I was gone. It would take the anxiety away. And then knowing that my anxiety is knowing, first and foremost, when that anxiety starts to peak, then you got the fears of what's coming next, what's going to
Right.
happen next. Because it's like there comes a certain point that it gets so bad that there is no control. you're not going to control it. Ain't nobody around you going to control it. All they can do is try to keep you from making a bad decision, or keep you from hurting others. Um,
And by the
so
time you realize it, you're already in it, you know?
that's
I
right.
remember being there, and the way that you worded that, brother, took me back. It took me back to when I started to learn, like when I'm getting anxiety, I would hit the Zen pin and I would take a breather, step away before before I start
Mhm.
motherfucking this and motherfucking that and ready to
Mhm.
throw. To
Yeah.
nowadays, I realize not just I have the anxiety, I need to hit the pin, but now I'm starting to realize the things that are giving me the anxiety. And so
Mhm.
it's helped me not only just realize my awareness of myself, but the things that are around me that are taking me away from my balance. And so I
Right.
think that it's important to talk about because so oftentimes people just talk about how it puts them to sleep or how it helps with their pain. But here you are talking the same way. The same thing I think about is that focus. And it
Mhm.
allows us to not focus on the wrong things, how it allows us to even react more
Right.
appropriately because it
Absolutely.
sometimes those rages, I call it, those moments there I've there's times where I've been so out of control that I didn't even know what was going on until I found myself in it and it was too late. I'm like, oh shit, I overreacted.
Yeah. That's a fact. One of my worst PTSD moments, my flashback moments. I literally had an 8-hour standoff with Shawnee Bomb Squad, the Olathe SWAT team. 8 hours. Now I wasn't in that full on uh, flashback for 8 hours, but the first few hours I was. And then after I started coming back and realizing what was happening, then all of a sudden the guilt hit me and like, what am I doing? How did it get this far? Am I able to get through it and past it? Like, did I go too far this time? And then the anger of not being able to control it. Like somebody that doesn't deal with PTSD, when they get angry, all they got to do is turn around, walk away, step away, get away from the situation, take a breather, and then everything's okay. It's different with somebody that has PTSD, because like there's literally triggers to that causes things to happen that are out of your control. And so like it's like cheap. It's like this, when I got out in '05. There wasn't many places where you could find cannabis. It was still illegal. So like you had to go to your street pharmacist just to get it, and that wasn't a guaranteed thing all the time. So like there was a stress in that. There was a stress in knowing that this helped you, but then it wasn't always available like it is these days. Now these days you can go into a dispensary and boom, 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 got it, and you're good to go. But like there was a sense of fear of of not being able to find it or get it, and then what the unknowns were, the repercussions of that were back in the day. But
Yeah,
these
that's
days
scary,
we're
man. Getting caught like where you're at. If someone were to have it and get caught, um, they can get into a lot of trouble. And that's
yep.
why I don't even mess with traveling around with it at all anymore because I've been pulled over so many times and searched. I'm like, what in
Mhm.
the hell? Like there's certain states that if I pass through, I'd be in big trouble. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
It's Christmas, maybe a couple.
there's a few states out there that you can get into some serious trouble with it, that's for sure. But most generally every just about every state's decriminalized it to where it's not a big it's you'll get a ticket and you'll have to go to court for it. But then there are other states that they'll nail you. And then the border crossing the border type thing puts you in a whole different uh, issue depending on where you're at. But yeah, like for most states have decriminalized it, and eventually, I think within the next 10 years, most states should or would be recreational. And it's such it's us telling our story about what it does for us because of the background that we have. I want people to understand that you don't have to have been in the military to have PTSD or panic disorders or attacks and anxiety disorders and attacks. Sometimes we go through things in life that are like a combat zone, whether you're in a combat or not. Uh, so the what it is able to do for people on so many different levels is just it's mind-boggling. It's like, well, how come this hasn't happened sooner? How many people would still be around today if they would have just had access to it? You know, and with that said, and for anybody listening that it has never messed around with cannabis and but struggles with PTSD and anxiety and stuff, I encourage you to get to know what it is and how it works because there's different strains for different things. One, you could be you may hear me, you may have never used it before. You may hear me say it helps with anxiety and PTSD, and then first thing you do is you go to a dispensary and grab the first thing you see. You shouldn't do that. But I will tell you this: the people that work in those dispensaries these days, they know what they know what they're dealing with. They know the ins and the outs of it. Uh, they know how to help you find what you need. So if you are a first timer, you do go to a dispensary, tell them what you're looking for and why you're looking for it. If you got pain, tell them you got pain. You need something for pain. You got issues sleeping, tell them you need something for 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 sleeping. If you have focus issues, tell them, I'm unable to focus, so I need something to help me with focus. There's so many different things within that field that are meant to help in certain areas. So just be sure that when if you do go in there and you do put it to the test, talk to the people behind the counter because they're going to be the ones that are going to help you. They're going to ask you, what are you looking for? And just tell them. Now, if you already know what you're looking for and you walk in and you tell, I'm looking for this, this, and this, they'll take you right to it. Boom, boom, done deal. But if you have any questions, I'm telling you, they're like doctors. They are literally like doctors. They are behind the counter. They can tell you exactly what you need or what to try.
And I want to
So
bring it,
just
you brought up such an amazing point. You said there's different strains for different pains. And I actually published a book called Strains for Pains. It's on Amazon. You can get it at the website, 420chief.net. But the purpose of that is to try out those strains because there's going to be some flavors, some terpenes that maybe you don't care for the taste of, or maybe it doesn't give you the desired effect. Document it in the book and you'll figure that out. And then you'll find the ones that you like the flavor of and you like the effects of. And then maybe you want one for sleep, or maybe you want one for talking to your mother or your in-laws or whoever, your kids even, and you'll know your go-to strain. So um, I love that you're helping bring awareness to the different strains because that was the first thing that I started to research. Now we had different mission. I was getting off of the pills and the alcohol. And so I was like going Cali sober, adding weed to my drinking until I just kind of weaned off and just went straight weed. But I learned that some of these strains, like some sativas would knock me out, some indicas would pick me up. And I'm like, there's way more to it than just this indica sativa hybrid business. And then the more I started to research, the more I started to learn that there are different terpenes and different properties in each of these that react with our endocannabinoid systems differently, meaning
mhm.
some of them will help with this area, some help with this area, but it's different for every person. And that's why you've got to just figure out the safest way for you to consume and then just keep track of it and document it. So thank you so much for bringing that up because a lot of people don't realize there's thousands of strains. It's like Kool-Aid,
Yes.
but more.
Some people that I've talked to that have tried it before, they'll always make the comment, well, I have I have focus issues and I smoked this and it put me straight to sleep, and that's because you got the wrong strain. You need to look for the right stuff for you, and sometimes like you said, you got to try different things to figure out what works for you. But when you do find the one that works for you, write that down, get familiar with it, because you may not be in this in a lot of dispensaries. They're not always going to have the same strains and the same stuff all the time. They always got new stuff coming in, but they know what is similar to what. So
Exactly.
as long as, like, if you're out of state, you're in some other state, and you don't have you don't they don't have that strain that you're looking for specifically, tell them, this is what I normally use, and this is what it's for, and they will find you something that can rival that, or that is very similar to that. And if you need to just get a little bit of a couple different things, find out what else works for you. If you find something else that works for you, write that down too. Add that to the list, because like
I'm
not
really
every place is going to have the same stuff.
I'm really enjoying this conversation with you. So I'm going to take you just a little bit further before we go to. I want to talk about your TikTok fam real quick,
Mhm.
but beforehand, um, when you use it on focus, and I just wanted to let people know this, I use cannabis primarily for my mental health. Swear
Mhm.
to you, I'm not diagnosed, but I have severe ADHD. I have PTSD. If I don't get control of my thoughts quickly, I can go into an anxiety, a panic, a rage, because I don't know sad. Like my body will reject it, and I will go angry before I'll go cry. That's how I
Mhm.
was. And so I I started, like, when I got off away from the alcohol, which again, I was a functional alcoholic. I was still dadding, I was still working, I was still partying every day, hard, hard, hard. But I didn't realize I had the problem, and I didn't think anything about it until I started really focusing on that relationship with my kids. And when I could see what they saw, it was disgusting. And I was able to honestly use cannabis as a guidepost for my mental health. It started off, it was like I depended on it. Like rather than a Xanax, I could hit my pen. It would help a lot faster, but it was also an excuse to get away from that situation. It gave me time to think. It gave me time to respond more appropriately. Like I said, starting with my kids, then at work with my employees, and then it moved on from there. But I was able to use it to get away from jumping into those situations that would get me to the point where I'm triggered and I didn't know it until it was already there. So I know it's not a cure all for mental health. You still have to do a lot of practice and a lot of the work. It's you that has to do the response. But if you give yourself that little bit of space, that time to make a reaction, just a little bit of silence for you before a response, I have found that cannabis has helped me the best, more than any other medication. And like meditation just wouldn't do it for me to start, but
Mhm.
that's how it's helped me. Have you found it useful in any way in your life, like with talking with any certain people, or even just nerves, anything like that?
Yeah, absolutely. And when you talk about the Xanax and all them other types of narcotics and stuff, that stuff you really can. Your body will, whether you need it for your mind or not, your body becomes dependent on it. And I don't like that. I don't like that at all, because if you don't have it, then all of a sudden now you got issues that your body is having serious issues because it's not getting that medication that you've been taking. Like if you run out of it or whatever. Cannabis doesn't do that. Cannabis does not do that. Your body doesn't become dependent on it. Now, your mind might, because that's your crutch. That's your go-to to get through the anxiety, or get through the sleep deprivation, or whatever your issue is, your pain issue. But it's not something that is going to make your body dependent on it to where your body will shut down. The narcotics and stuff that these doctors push to you now, if you stop taking it all of a sudden cold turkey, your body could potentially shut down, like serious, and then you end up in the hospital. Cannabis don't do that to you. Your body won't become dependent on it like that, to where if all of a sudden you run out of it and you go without it for a week or two, your body isn't going to shut down. It's not going to cause major complications to you. It's Cannabis doesn't hurt your organs. There's just so many positive things to cannabis versus what the doctors have given. And yeah, some doctors, they if you tell them you don't want a narcotic, something that your body can become dependent on, they'll give you something else, but that shit don't work. It doesn't work for me. It never worked for me. And like the idea of having to take this pill, this pill, this pill, and this pill just to feel fucking normal, like everybody else. I just want to be normal. I don't want to be in here all the time. I don't want to have the anxiety issues all the time. I just want to be able to have a day where I'm walking around and I feel just like everybody else. The idea of having to take a damn pill just to feel that, it irks me. It irks me. Cannabis, yeah, you take you smoke the cannabis, or you eat the edible, whatever it is, to get that normal feeling again. But it's so different. It is such a different thing. It does exactly what it needs to do without it affecting your body to the point if you don't got it, it shuts it down.
Or
That's
make
scary.
you someone you're not,
That's a
like
fact.
like we
And
both discussed.
and the doctors don't care these days. They're whole, like, if anybody, after COVID, like, everybody should have understood then that our health system was designed to make money, not take care of people. It was never designed to take care of people.
I'm
So,
not going to say anything because I don't want to get taken down, but I'll say do
oh,
your independent research. That's all I'll say on that
gotcha.
note. But I
Yeah.
did want to talk about, you were talking about being yourself, and I think that cannabis has definitely helped me embrace that, because when I started becoming more and more open about it, I get a lot of this or a lot of that. Actually, more support than I initially thought. I thought I would get a lot more of the "you're a stoner," which I definitely do get. That's stoner talk, boys. Love you,
Hmm.
lady, whoever you are. But yeah, I was able to fully embrace myself, and that leads me right into your platform on YouTube, We the Wolfpack, the dot lost dot veteran on TikTok. And like I said at the opening, that's a place that people can come and fully just be themselves. My favorite thing about that I've ever seen, and I can't even rip it off, but I love that you do, is you ask what's everybody's number, and
Hmm.
they'll say, 1 through 10, 10 being this is the best day of my life, 1 being shit, I need somebody. And
Hmm.
it's such an awesome check in. I've never seen anybody getting doxxed, I've never seen anybody disrespected, but I have seen care and support. And we can't help and we can't fix everyone, but we can be here together. So, why don't you tell us a little bit about your mission and just some of the things that you and your family there on We the Wolfpack on TikTok do?
So basically, what we have built as a community together. I never like to say me. I built it, because it's so much more than just me. Because it's like this: when I first got onto TikTok, all I was looking for was like a safe place to hang out, chill, be myself, without the trolls, without the bullies, without the finger wagging judgment and all that. And it was really hard to find. It was really super hard to find, because like, TikTok's just a whole different social media platform. And most of the time, when the lives that you go through, you have to behave a certain way in order to fit in. Whether you're a gifter, they don't acknowledge you because you're not a gifter, or they just don't know you, so you're not included type situation. Or you go into the live streams that are full of bullies or full of spam accounts, bots, you name it. I just desired a safe place, and what I realized was I was going to have to develop my own in order to find that. So that's what caused me to become a live streamer and a live host on TikTok. And what followed that just blew me away. You know, we always get into our heads thinking we're the only kinds of people that go through the specific issues that we go through, and we have this feeling of feeling alone, like we're doing all this shit alone and nobody understands us. And over the 3 years of having the live stream, most generally daily, there's a few times that I take a break here and there on a day or so, but there's so many more people like me that desire that same thing, because we work busy, we have busy lives, we work long days, we got kids, we got sports that we got to go to, we got just everybody's got their different thing that they got to do as being an adult, so like the social aspect of life kind of shuts down at that point. Maybe in our younger years when we were young adults, we like to go out and party and have fun and go to the clubs or the bars or go have the bonfires and what have you. But as we get older, we don't do that anymore. We grow out of it. We start adulting like we got to adult, got to pay the bills, and in life it can be really stressful. And that social side of things it's just not there anymore. And that doesn't help. It doesn't help you in here, because then you're all alone dealing with your life, your job, and everything else. And so, like the idea of creating a safe space, uh, it was just a definite must, a definite need, not just for me, but for lots of other people. Because they, like I said, even if they've only got an hour or 2 hours at the end of the day that they got, to kick their feet up, we've created a place for them to come chill, get to know people, have fun doing it, listen to some good music, talk to some genuine folks, and just relax for however much time that they have, and being on social media, that's hard to do because of all the negativity and all the drama and all the bullshit that's involved in that. So, like, if you've only got a couple hours a day to just socialize and have that social interaction without having to leave your house, because that's the beautiful thing about it, you don't even have to leave your home. The moment you get home from work and you're at home and you're on the couch, get with your feet up, all you got to do is pop your phone up, get the app, boom, you're in. You don't have to go anywhere. You don't have to spend any money. You just kick your feet up and relax. And the big thing about our community is come as you are. We accept you. Even if we don't know you, we accept you for who you are. We won't ever put stipulations on you in order for you to be one that fits in. We just desire you to be yourself and to relax and to kick it with us. And if you're struggling, you struggle with us, because not, we all struggle. Ain't nobody perfect. We always have our down days, but it's very important that when you do have those down days, you've got somebody to talk to, because so many of us go throughout our lives without anybody to really talk to. We feel that disconnect, like nobody understands. We're all alone. We're the only ones going through this. But I promise you, you're not the only one struggling. You're not the only one that's been through what you have been through. And maybe if you get around a good group of people that you can see that, you'll understand that, and won't feel so alone, because that's part of the battle of the mind. When you start feeling like you're the only one dealing with those problems, and you get into the woe is me's. We all do it. Okay, we all do it. We got to break that thought process, because you aren't the only one that's going through it. It's just that you haven't had the opportunity to surround yourself with good people. And like I said, it's hard to find on social media. However, over the 3 years, we've built a hellacious community that's just completely supportive. And you don't have to be anybody special. You don't have to be a certain kind of way to come kick it with us. We just desire you to be yourself. And in the process, if you're wanting to build your own communities or become a live streamer yourself, or a host on TikTok or other social media platforms, we help you along that process, because we've been there, we've done it, we know how to do it. And so we'll help you along that process. There's there's so much that we have to give as people. Each and every one of us have something really special about us. Every one of us has a voice, and so many of us have been shut down and unable to open our mouths and express ourselves because of the society. Society is like, if you don't fit in, if you're not this kind of way, then you're a nobody. But that's not the truth. We all have something valuable to bring to society, to life, to the social side of things. There's something that you have been through in your life, that you've made it through because you're a fucking warrior, that you've made it through, that there's others that are struggling with that thought in their head, I'm not going to make it through this. but you have that rare wisdom. You know, we go through things in life that are shitty, but we make it through, and we made it through because we were able to overcome and adapt and figure it out along the way. But sometimes, you know, we've been in those situations where we're like, you know, I'm not going to make it. I'm not going to get through this. And we do. But you know how that feels. And there's other people out there that are struggling too, that are in their head thinking they're all alone. They're not going to make it. But that's when you're able to stand up and say, hey, you're going to make it because I made it. And I'm going to show you how. And it's all genuine shit. It's all out of love. There's no motives behind it. There's no pay me for my help like these fucking doctors these days. You know, it's just good people that are genuine and authentic that understand. Maybe they don't not maybe not everybody can empathize because they haven't been in your shoes, but they can sympathize. And you know, a lot of us when we struggle, we don't want the sympathy. You know, I totally get that. We don't want people feeling sorry for us, but it's so much more than that. Okay. And if that's the way you think, you got to snap out of that. You got to, because we are a social creature. We are meant to be a social creature. When we completely we isolate ourselves and we fight our demons alone. We fight our demons alone. And that ain't a way to live life. There's not. TikTok is given, and it's not the only platform out there. YouTube's another one. You know, uh, the it's given us the opportunity to not only not have to leave the comforts of our home to find that, but it's also given you the opportunity to build a community of people around you, whether you're a live host or not, but to build a community of people around you that genuinely care about you. You know, I tell our people all the time that you can't pick your family. Okay. We were born with who we're born with, but you sure as hell can pick your friends. And if you're down and out and you want to start feeling better, then surround yourself with good people. Surround yourself with genuine, authentic people that really genuinely care about you, because you really become what you surround yourself with. You hang around a bunch of assholes, that's what you're going to become, an asshole. You surround yourself with good people, you're going to be that good person that you were always intended to be.
Very
So that's
well
kind of what
said.
we do.
That's very well said. And I want to thank you so much for what you do on TikTok. If you guys are curious, that's the.lost.veteran on TikTok. He goes by WeTheWolfpack. I just want to thank you so much from what I've seen in there. And I'm a man of actions and not so much words, because we've all been told words our whole life and shown otherwise. And what I have seen just from that genuine support, I want to verbalize this so that our viewers can understand the level of support that I've experienced from Wolfpack's fam. Just last night, Sunnyside of Freedom had a live. She was adopting a veteran, and she was raising money to give money to veterans in need before the holidays, 12/22. And you hosted a live beforehand and got a whole bunch of folks together, rallied up, and brought them into her live. You co hosted it so that they were easily guided in there, and you hung out. And as a result of that, 5 veterans received $520 a piece for before the holidays. So just imagine that out there, folks. You know how expensive things are in the economy, which the food, especially if you're trying to eat healthy food, the just everything has gone up in price. So that is definitely going to impact those 5 folks that were selected for that. So I wanted to say thank you so much for that demonstration. That level of support helped draw in folks, and I did see donations coming through from the Wolfpack fam. So that is just one testimony. Like I'd mentioned earlier, thank you so much for all you've taught me on the TikTok platform. I don't know much. I do a veteran, not a veterans live. Sunnyside does a veterans live every Friday evening, 8 p.m. Central. I do music therapy, much like yourself, Monday, Thursday, and Saturday. And it's a platform where anybody can come. It's nothing but support in there. There's no drama. There's no flirting. There's no bullshit. We don't talk about people. But what humbles me the most, and you touched base on this a little bit earlier, is some of those folks behind the scenes will thank me so much and then proceed to tell me what they're going through when they were on the live. And that I didn't, you don't know. But then you'll be in the live and you'll see them giving somebody else love and support, and you know what they're going through. It's like, man, I love this so much. And I get such an amazing feeling and an inspiration from the fans there in the music lives. And I felt that level of energy in your lives when I see just that support from that fam coming over to support and get excited and following each other, showing up. Because support doesn't just mean money sometimes. We've got folks in here right now just live streaming, showing us love in the chat. And just from what I've heard from people, you never know what what somebody's going through. Your presence on there, that smile, that song could have been all that they needed to hear. And so please, if you can, help out, reach out and follow Wolfpack on TikTok. Keep spreading the community, spreading the love, because it really is making a change. And we all want to see things change. So thanks again for your story and just your service, what you've been through, and the education that you help the listeners with your knowledge and your personal research on cannabis. And I want to thank you. Much love to you, brother. I respect you so much, and I'm proud of you. And I want you to know you're on my rotation list, and I can't wait to meet you in real life. Because as you all know, or maybe you don't, Chief's on the road all the time. So I'm out there in real life meeting up with people, trying to, I'm not trying to, I'm making a change. Everywhere I go, we're getting shit done, we're doing things, and it's benefiting real life people. And there's no better gift for me than to see people supporting one another and really caring about one another. Because at the end of the day, that's how we unite. That's how we fix shit, is by actually giving a shit about each other. So I love what you're doing. Keep kicking ass. I'm going to keep supporting you and all that you do. And much love to you, fam. As always, lead with love, lead with